Okay, so I'm taking a quick break from the Hudson. Still kind of in the process of cleaning out the interior. I got all the overhead and everything pulled out, but I found somebody else that might be able to do the blasting on the inside, so I'm waiting until I hear back from that. So for right now, playing with the Suburban. As you can see, I took out the rear wheel well, which was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But the reason I did it is to repair this hole. It's not supposed to be there, and then also patch up that rust hole right there. So I'm gonna go set this up on my welding table and take my angle grinder to it and clean it off, and then I'm gonna start tacking metal all the way around it, and then just, it's not going to be super pretty repair, but it's going to be repaired nonetheless. I'm also debating on just swapping this out for just a solid piece of metal. It just lays on top right there. That might be the easier thing to do, honestly. Let me patch this up and see how I feel. Alright, so after thinking about it for approximately 20 seconds, I decided that the best option was to just do the flat plate and just cover this whole thing. So I got my grinder out. I'm going to clean up all around here and then clean that up, cut that out, put a patch in. I got some steel here. I got another piece in the back of my truck. I just gotta go grab it. My extension cord set up, grinder, cutting wheel, measuring tape. So I'm gonna set the camera up, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna do this. Alright, so I got it ground part of the way down, and then I kind of put an outline, a rough outline of where it needs to go. I'm not going to take it down to bare steel just yet, because I got to do all the cutting and everything around here. And then once I've got this cut out, then I'll come back and grind it back down to bare steel, and we can try welding it. Fortunately, this piece is relatively flat, so this smaller piece over here should be just fine. So this is some 16 gauge steel. I'm done. I don't have any of this color matched beige paint, whatever this is, but I do got a can of yellow engine enamel, and that's probably close enough. So we'll throw a coat of that on there once this is in, and that'll be that. And then cut that piece out, lay it on top here, and then this will be done. All right, so I'm gonna cut that out and try to weld this in here. Because my welder is all the way back in the garage, I'm gonna have to move this back over there in the yard again. All right, yep, so I'm gonna get that cut out, and then I'm gonna move the Suburban back over there towards to where my welder's at, because I don't have a 240 volt extension cord that'll come all the way over here. All right, so I'll see you guys in a minute. Okay, so I got the piece cut out. I don't know how shaky that last clip was where the camera fell. Anyway, so I got this piece cut out. It's mostly flat. There's like a very slight angle to it on there. So this sits in there. Oops, it's upside down. Okay, well I got it to fit most of the way in there. I think I might put a couple more, just a little bit more of a bend here, roughly center, just to, so it sits a little bit better. But so on the back side, a little bit of rust was forming, so I went and cleaned it up. And I put some of the Eastwood rust encapsulator on there, just to kind of prevent it from it actually like going through and having to do a patch panel here on the outside, because I don't know how I'm going to do that. Probably just have to go get another piece and cut it out and weld it in place. Because like I said previously in a different video, I don't remember which one, I do not own a MIG welder, so this is all going to be done using stick, mostly because my air regulator on my argon bottle is now leaking, so I can't even take it in place. Not that I'm very good at TIG welding to begin with, but so it's starting to get pretty dark out. I'm getting really hungry because I haven't eaten it all day. I've been busy doing this. So I'm gonna finish putting this bend in here, and then I'm gonna call it for tonight. Eventually, I don't know when. It's probably gonna be about a week or so before I get back to. It might be a couple of days actually. I don't know. I'll see you guys when I see you guys. How about that? All right. So it's been a couple of days once again. So I got the panel in. As you can see, it is coated in JB weld. So I tried welding it in, and the top along here, the top welded just fine. It looked pretty good. Bottom looked like your friend that can do it cheaper. And then obviously I wasn't able to bend the entire panel as far as I would like to, so there was big gaps here on the side. So I just ended up covering the whole thing with JB weld. Is it the correct way to do it? No. Will it work? Maybe for a little while. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so I'll just put that on there. I'm gonna let it sit, and then probably tomorrow give it a coat of paint, and then we can take this piece and then try to patch this whole thing up, and then we should be done with this for the most part. All right, so I'll see you guys start cutting that one up. So I'm just gonna wait for that to cure. Okay, we're back. So it's been a couple days, and by a couple days I mean it's been a week and a half. So as you can see, we got it painted. Obviously yellow doesn't really match, but a JB weld's on there. It's sealed on the outside, so it shouldn't rust. Or if it does, then you know that's a problem for future me to deal with. All right, so now gotta get the take this piece, cut it down to size, and then put it in here, and probably weld this one into place also, and then put a bunch of body filler, or not body filler, seam sealer around here, so that way I can put it on there and call it good. I don't know where I left off in the last video, but I'll figure that out in editing. But as you can see, I got the plate in here. Does it look great? No, it doesn't. Is this the right way to do it? No, it isn't. But it's in there pretty strong, so I don't expect to have like several hundred pounds sitting on this, so it should be fine. Am I proud of it? Yes and no. I mean, I set out to accomplish a goal, and I accomplished that goal, so I should be proud in that aspect. However, I don't believe this to be of the best quality, obviously. It's welded in like 3 spots, like along here and here and right up there, and maybe a spot back in here or so. And then the rest of it's just seam sealer and JB weld on both sides. But I got red paint, also got yellow paint to kind of spray over this and make it look decent, I guess. The next step is going to be to pull this carpet out and then clean this off. I want to put some of what's called non-skid on here. I was going to do like rhino liner or something, but that holds water, and I'm not trying to have this rust out and do even more super fantastic work. So non-skid is used on Navy ships, on weather decks, so anything that's like exposed to the weather. They use it to launch and recover aircraft, chemical resistant. And if I'm going to be putting a whole bunch of stuff back in here, it's going to keep it from moving around. Problem is, it's incredibly expensive. It's like $250 for like a gallon, which I think covers about 25 square feet. So I'm not going to need several gallons to do this. I don't know how much space it is exactly. I don't have my tape measure to do it, but quick math, say 15, maybe 20 square feet at most. But I don't know, I'm going to decide between the red and the yellow. This video is going to be delayed by a couple of days probably, because I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to get my buddy's El Camino running, because he decided to run it with a blown head gasket and then blew up the engine that was in it. So if you can take a look here in cylinders 7 and 8, I don't know if you can see that the sun's kind of... Yeah, so it blew out the bottom of the cylinders, and then the block itself is warped, so that camshaft is seized in there and it won't move. Next thing I plan on doing with the experiment, aside from doing the back, taking the carpet out and all that stuff, is doing the front coil springs and the front sway bar. I have a rear sway bar. I'll see if I can install it. If not, then I'll probably sell it. And then I need an alignment, and then this thing's pretty much good to go. In terms of driving it, well, this door needs to be realigned because of the gap that's at the top. Other than that, it's just really dirty. Clean all this stuff out. Yeah, so I'll see you guys when we get to the point where we got to do the front coil springs. Okay guys, so I'm in the middle of doing the coil springs now. I've already taken the well, I've already done this side completely, so as you can see the new springs in there. And then I also took the sway bar out. These two bolts up here in the front decided they didn't want to cooperate, so I took them to a grinder. Ooh, look, a spider. There you go. There you go. There he goes. But so I took a grinder, took those ones off. Now that is over here. So now I'm doing driver's side. I just gotta adjust this leak here too. Might have just been me overfilling the grease or something. I don't know. So I took the sway bar out. I'm about to take the lower control arm out. I don't want to do the top one because then it'll be hanging by this brake line. I don't really want to deal with that. So I got the spring right over here. As you can see, old spring, new spring. So I think these ones are slightly heavier duty than these ones were. Put them side by side. They're about the same side. This one's slightly taller because obviously this one's like 40 years old. So it's kind of compressed a little bit with age. But the material is also thicker than this one. This looks like 1/2 inch and this is probably closer to about 5/8. So not much larger, but just a little bit. All right, so I got the wrench. Hopefully it's the right size. Yep. All right, so I'm gonna get this camera set up somehow, some way, and then take this out. Gotta bring my jack over here so I can lift this up. So when this comes loose, I can drop the control arm, or not the control arm, the spring. All right, before I get into this, so there's a couple different ways you can take these coil springs out. First one is with the spring compressor. So there's a couple different types. There's obviously, so the one that I have is the one that goes on the inside and then it hooks onto the actual coil itself, and then it pulls it together from the center. Then there's another one where it grabs the outside and then pulls it together that way, but it's 2 pieces. I wouldn't recommend using that one just because if you tighten one side more than the other, it's gonna cause the spring to just kind of go from being straight to curving to whichever side you're tightening more. And then the center spring, or the center styled one, works pretty well, but you know, you got to make sure you got the right size. And they've both got their ups and downs. I'm not super great at explaining things, but if you don't have one, I do have one. It's just like 15 feet that way. I just don't want to go get it. You can just raise the control arm, and then just once loosen this ball joint and take it out, and then just drop it slowly, and then the weight of the vehicle plus the jack will keep the spring from exploding out in whichever direction and then causing, you know, injury or breaking things. But this off. Okay, so now back up a little bit. I just slowly lower it. Sometimes it sticks, so you gotta give it a little motivation with the hammer or something. I'm gonna use a really long pry bar because it seems like the less dangerous option here. All right, I'm back. So I ended up having to tap it a few times with the hammer to get it to come loose, which is, you know, it's kind of normal. But anyway, something I also found out in the last couple of minutes, if you're gonna hit it with the hammer, keep the nut on there. So if you hit too high, it hits the nut, not the threads, which you need to tighten it back. So, okay, so now that the nut's out, it's loose, slowly, very slowly, lower this back down. And stand back, just in case. All right, so now your springs out. Take your new spring, and then you're gonna spend the next probably hour and a half fiddling around with it. But I don't even know if you can see this or not because I don't have my flashlight on. Oh, yeah, it's not too bad. But down here, there's a little bit of a ridge, and then there's kind of a pocket right about here. So you'll see this hole here at the top, and then right next to it, there's a little ridge. So on the spring, the bottom of it, you're gonna take this end of it right here, and that's gonna sit in this little pocket right here, and that's gonna be what locates it. And then here in the top, which I know you're not gonna be able to see, you can feel it with your hand. There's a another pocket up here, if you can see that, which I doubt. So you can feel it, and then the top of this is gonna sit in there. So it's kind of a pain to get this to sit in there, doing it by yourself, but it is possible. On the first time I tried this, I ended up using my mallet, which is somewhere, and then just setting it up and standing it up like so, and then resting one of these nuts on here just so that way this stayed up, and then I can move the lower control arm around as needed to get this on the inside, so that way it was seated properly. So let me go grab my mallet. Actually, I'll show you. It's gonna be kind of hard to do with one hand. So set it up like so. Make sure it's kind of flat, rough, mostly. So just gonna lift up, set it on there. So now your hub and your knuckle are out of the way, and you can move this around as needed. Push this down all the way, spring, put it in. Make sure it's in that pocket. And here you might have to tilt the spring upwards to get it to go up. But once you do, you can take your little mini jack, your block of wood, make sure you're on the tight setting so it actually raises. And before it gets too tight, make sure that the top of it is where it needs to be on that pocket as well. All right, well, you kind of get the idea. I don't know, once again, I don't know how well you can see this. I'm gonna put this in here. I'll get back to you when I'm done. It's probably gonna be a couple of days once again. Yeah, it's not supposed to look like that. No, it's fine. So obviously, as you lift up on the lower control arm, that coil spring's got enough force to just pick the rest of the truck up with it. So I got it in there. Actually, it didn't take too much longer after I turned the camera off, but I went ahead and tightened down this ball joint, and then the lower bearing, or this tie rod end, and the lower ball joint. This one went a lot easier than the other side. On the other side, when you Google spinning ball joint, the answer you're gonna get 99% of the time is use a pry bar. I'll just use this as an example. So you just stick it in there, behind there, once again, can't see anything, and then you just wedge it so that way the taper seizes and it doesn't spin. That wasn't working on this one. So sometimes what you got to do is take you a little scissor jack. I just realized I forgot to put this bolt in. But I'll do that here in a minute. You take you a little scissor jack, put it in there upside down, and then along the top of this wheel well here, on this truck it's structural, but so you just find you something, extend it a bit, and then what this is going to do is it's going to push the entire assembly down onto the lower ball joint, and then obviously you got the jack on the other side pushing up, so that's going to push them as close together as possible. And then if this then you can go ahead and use the pry bar trick and then try and seize it together. So in my case it was because the threads were all galled up and there's a bunch of like dirt and stuff in there, so I took the nut off and then sprayed it down with some I don't got any brake cleaner out right now, so I just used a bunch of PB Blast. It seemed to work just fine. But make sure that those threads are clean, so that way you don't have to sit there and struggle with it for like an hour and a half like I did. Yeah, sometimes you gotta get a little extra with it. This entire side is up off the off canter. It's off to the one side. So what you're gonna do is very, very slowly lower it. So we can go ahead and put our shock back in. And the last thing I gotta do is put in the new sway bar, which I have inside. I'm gonna do that off camera just because of how fast I'm losing daylight. Probably only got about 45 minutes left. And I can put the wheels back on, and then that'll be it. We get this video edited and published. Probably spend most of Friday and Saturday editing the video. I'm not very good at it. It's a very slow process, and my computer was not designed to do it. So, all right, guys. So, in typical car fashion, that 30-minute repair is now no longer a 30-minute repair. So basically, I got this new sway bar. And unlike the OEM one where this just comes straight and then mounts to right here, it comes out a little bit, and then I got to drill a hole here in the lower control arm to mount the bracket to. Problem is, it sits about a ½ inch too far back to actually allow this to bolt up and line up straight. I've got a couple different options here. One, I can spend more money to get an OEM sway bar, but that seems like it would be expensive, and then I'd have to wait several days or weeks or whatever for it to get here. Two, I could reuse the old sway bar, which I don't want to do because it's 40 years old. Three, I can just move the bracket forward about a ½ inch to take care of that gap, which I think is probably what I'm going to do. And if it doesn't work, then I'll just get new brackets. So there's slots on the sway bar. This is moved all the way forward as far as it'll go, and it's still about a little bit more than a ½ inch off. That is definitely way more than a ½ inch. I'm probably gonna have to end up doing is moving the bracket forward and then re-drilling the holes in the frame to move this forward, you know, the difference to make up for this. So I got my grinder out. I'm gonna grind these rivets off on both sides. I'm thinking drilling a new hole in the frame and then just bolting this back up is probably going to be the easiest thing to do. I'm going to cut these pins out, or these rivets, and then move the holes forward roughly an inch or so. Maybe I'm thinking about an inch will probably be fine. And then we can use the adjustment on the actual bracket itself to compensate for the difference. Do that on both sides, and then hopefully be done with this. All right, so I got them out. Ended up using just a blue bottle torch. Heated it up a little bit, not a whole lot, just just enough to expand the metal around it. So now I'm gonna take one of the old mounts, gonna put it in here, and I'm gonna take a ruler. We're just gonna draw a line, inch down, and we're just gonna move this an inch. All right, so that's the 1 inch mark right there. If you don't have yourself one of these 6-inch rules, so this one just happens to be an inch wide, makes it pretty convenient to get in there and just make a 1 inch mark. So now you can measure the hole. I measure to the center of the hole. That's 7/8. Line up the 7/8. Make your mark. There's your hole. Now we're just gonna take a drill a hole, and then we can just use this one. Once we drilled this one, we can just mount the bracket back up, and then we can just use this hole, so we don't have to do the marking and everything for the second one. So we only got to do it once. All right, guys. So I got the sway bar in there, got the holes drilled, and then bolted up together. I would say let's go take it for a test drive, but the batteries are dead, so it won't start. So I got those on the charger. Also, this back tire is flat, and the cigarette lighter in my truck is dead, so I can't use my little portable tire pump to inflate the tire. I can't use my big one over there because I still have to replace the motor and actually get it wired up and running. Front end's all done. Got to do the rear subframe, or not the rear subframe, the rear sway bar. I'll get to that eventually. Probably not going to do it right now because the sway bar I got actually didn't come with any hardware, so don't know what I'm supposed to do there. Anyway, so next thing on the list, got to fix this door. Shouldn't be super difficult. Just loosen those up and then just push the door forward a little bit. And I'm also still trying to find somebody to do some sandblasting on the interior of the Hudson. Although I figured I can go to Harbor Freight and get a sandblaster for about $170 and just do it myself. But that requires the air compressor to work, which it currently does not, because like I said previously, the motor is shot. And then I got to get this wired up. So that's the big thing holding me back right now is this thing. So I guess next couple of days or so, I'm gonna go get myself a new motor. I got them at Harbor Freight for about 250 bucks. This is just my rain cover. All right, there we go. So yeah, so I'm gonna end the video here. I'm gonna get this edited, put together, and try and have it posted in the next couple of days. So I'll see you guys in the next one.